Welcome to Houston Sports Talk with your host, Robert Land.
Thanks for checking into the best Houston sports podcast. And we welcome back our Rockets expert, Frank for Rockets Chop Shop. And after a rough All-Star weekend as a Rockets fan, it's good to catch up with you, Frank. But the All-Star weekend is kind of the perfect encapsulation of the season. So not enough Şengün and Tari playing time. Where have we heard that before? Jabari bricking three? Sound familiar? Terrible passing to KJ. That sounds familiar. And it wrapped up with a blowout and basically no defense on Sunday. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that was I know I probably say this every year. That's probably one of the worst All-Star games I've ever watched. Jabari not hitting a single three, okay. No, the Tari, barely getting to play. The Şengün looking like his best impersonation of James Harden at an All-Star game. It was not a good look for us as a squad, but the game itself was so it was unwatchable. I don't know what the NBA needs to do for that, but you know what I think my theory is that if you remember in the previous years, when a lot of this year we really didn't have a lot of our hallmark players play. And they usually set the tone for, okay, guys, let's get for real. Like when you have like Giannis or LeBron or Kevin Durant start playing defense, everybody else follows suit, especially in those fourth quarters, because they know when to turn it on. Even the Kawhis and all these guys. Well, Steph, none of them were there. It's just a bunch of secondary stars, and they didn't have a leader out there. Once LeBron went out, it was wraps, and they just kind of just went around in circles and just put on one of the worst performances that I've ever seen. And even the Jason Tatum thing, to be a fan of Kobe, I would be kind of like ashamed. You're just out there basically shooting practice shots to get that trophy as the All-Star game. That's probably the most meaningless All-Star game MVP probably ever. They literally just let them take shots. And the most entertaining part was when him and Jaylen Brown went back and forth for like 5 plays. After that, it was pretty bad weekend. They need to definitely fix something with that.
Man, this is where it was going. I mean, we're in the era of load management. I knew this is where we're headed. If you don't want to play as much as these guys don't seem to want to play on a regular basis, and I get the, trainers and analytics people are involved in load management as well. But, a great portion of this is about the players. You just felt like, oh, this is where things are going. Is like, everybody is so concerned and so freaked out about actually trying hard in anything but a playoff game. I want to go back to the Rockets, though, for a second, Frank, because why does our collective IQ as a team, as players, as a franchise have to be so horrible? KJ Martin plays with one of the best passers in the NBA. The guy's in Salt Lake this weekend. It's not like, he's thousands of miles away. And he picks Jayshawn Tate to set him up for the slam dunk contest. That's the guy.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened there, man. I was having flashbacks of Jalen's 15 attempts. I was like, oh my God, please not again. Not again. Not one of these where he's going to keep trying and never get the dunk. At least he got to finish his dunks in less than 5 tries. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what happens with the Rockets. It's just like we just have a bad look going around with us wherever we go. But, I did enjoy the slam dunk contest. Mac McClung, he definitely put on a good show. I've been following him for a while. I think most of the people that are into that Ball is Life, high school mixtape stuff, everybody knows Mac McClung. To me, he has probably a top 5 high school mixtape in the era of high school mixtapes. So it's kind of full circle for him to go from a kid that when you saw him in high school, you thought, oh, yeah, he's going to be a star, breaking Allen Iverson's Virginia scoring record, and then going to Georgetown, not doing anything there, going to Tech, not doing anything there, getting to the league, getting kicked out the league for not being that good, G League, borderline out the league, and then to come full circle to win the dunk contest. Good for him. That was probably the most entertaining part of the night. But, man, it's so many things. I saw even like the Ja Morant quote of him like almost scoffing at not being in the dunk contest. Like it's a badge of honor not to be in the dunk contest. I don't know what's going on, man. I don't know what's going on. They need to somehow reshape this. I don't know if they could do it in the CBA or something, or put some better incentives or make it mean something. But right now, they're looking like they're going to be trending with the NFL. We might just start doing one-on-one drills in a couple of years if they just want to have people watch, because it's really, really nasty right now.
Yeah, there's some soft NBA players, in my opinion, these days that are too afraid to. This isn't about getting injured. These are just guys that are afraid to be embarrassed, Frank. They're
Yeah.
afraid to get out there and look bad. That's it.
Yep, that's basically what it is. To guard on defense in an all-star game, nobody wants their, and it could be, you could blame the agents too. Nobody wants their clients to look bad. I'm sure some of the players don't care, but they're going to get counsel not to do so. So, yeah, even the Elam ending that they tried, it failed. They didn't even care, and it's for charity. So if I was a kid in the Salt Lake City, Boys and Girls Club, and I see my guy out there just walking. Like, what hope do I have that we're gonna get this 50,000? It's really sad, man. That was bad look for the NBA.
Rockets news, I guess, in the last week. It feels like there's a couple of things that were news that maybe weren't news to you and I, but let me get to that in a second. Support us by subscribing and commenting on YouTube and listen to us on your favorite app. But Frank, Silas quoted as saying he hasn't run a play for a Jabari all year. People were outraged. I mean, come on, Frank. Does anybody listen to you and me?
Right. I mean, I'm not gonna say I knew for a fact. I hoped that we were wrong, but I mean, yeah, it seemed like it. It was the evidence was very overwhelming that Jabari was not having plays ran. And to me, this also confirms what we saw last year with Jalen Green, when everybody complained that he was being used like PJ Tucker, standing in the corner waiting for a kick out pass from a point guard who didn't know how to read a pick and roll. So, I mean, yeah, I think where they put themselves in, and this is, they put themselves and he did go on to quote. I think there's some more quotes from Stone about their read and react offense that they run. I don't know if it was Silas or Stone that said anything about that, but um, in order to have a read and react offense, you have to have players that are able to read, right? Then they can react. The problem is the guys can't read. They don't have the collective IQ to be able to make the right decisions on what the defense is showing them. So if you're not going to run plays for Jabari Smith and you're expecting the ball handlers that you have to be able to also learn and make the right plays, even though you know they can't, you're essentially setting them up for failure. It was very, I mean, to me, that's a crazy comment for a coach to say, knowing what we have going on with about 7 or 8 sub 21-year-olds on the team who are still learning the NBA game. You're going to plop in one of the youngest players in the league, your third overall pick, and put him at the mercy of a bunch of other guys that don't know what they're doing. It's borderline incompetent in my opinion. And it's just kind of more on brand with what the Rockets have been doing the past 2 years as it relates to developing these young guys that they got.
Let me ask you this though, because we talked about this, and I'm of the opinion that yeah, Silas gets a lot of blame, but Jabari Smith gets a lot of blame because as an NBA player that is coming in known as a shooter, when you're constantly wide open when they throw you the ball and you cannot make the shot, it is very much also your fault. But let me ask you this, Frank: if you were Steven Silas, what plays do you run for Jabari Smith? Because he's not a guy that just runs around a pick and he's a guy that's just going to be Clay Thompson and get the ball and shoot. You can't put him in the post quite yet on a consistent basis because he doesn't have the size to handle some guys in the lower body physically. He gets bumped a lot. We've seen it when he has had a chance to get in the post. He has trouble keeping that position, bully balling a guy, doing all of that sort of stuff. Sometimes he does, sometimes he doesn't. What are the plays that you think Silas should have run for him specifically? Like, what kind of action do you think would have helped get Jabari going? I mean, maybe a back cut or something like that. You maybe seeing more like that around the screen, but is there a defender that's going to be scared of Jabari if he's coming off a screen, coming off the pick, coming out? They just going to cover the back pick? Aren't they going to be anticipating him going to the basket if he's coming off of picks or something like that?
Yeah, I think for them, obviously you have to find out what he likes. And one thing I noticed about Jabari, he can pull up in transition. He can walk into a lot of threes, and I noticed they did start doing that earlier in the year, but abandoned it towards the end, kind of the middle of the season, where they would let him bring the ball up in transition and walk into some threes because it just felt like it was comfortable for him. But also just once again goes back to the read and react. Use him more as a screener in the for the guards, and then the guards have to be have the enough sense to be able to get him the ball in a timely manner in the rhythm of the play, rather than when the defender is able to recover and things like that. He still has to hit shots, but to me, the quality of the shots also matter. There's a difference between getting a kick out three with a few seconds left to try to make it than being in the middle of action. One of the best games Jabari had was a game where Coach Silas actually started the game with almost 2 to 3 straight plays just drawn up for him, where he's coming off of screens. To me, he is a movement shooter, not to the extent of a Steph Curry or Klay Thompson, but yeah, you can use him off pin downs and things like that. Maybe in short areas, not like he's going to go baseline to baseline running to get an open shot, but in short spaces where you can also do some things with him and Şengün. A little two-man action with big on big where he can get into his mid-range and shoot from there, because we know he is a better mid-range shooter than he's a three-point shooter. I think personally Jabari he's like I said, one of the youngest players in the NBA. I don't think he's NBA ready. I think he was thrust into the workload that he was given, playing 30 plus minutes a game too early. I think that they should have been splitting his minutes directly down the middle with Tari Eason and giving them almost even workload. So Jabari, he doesn't deserve to play that many minutes, and he's not ready to play as many minutes as he's playing. The kid is just not ready for the NBA right now. I still have a lot of faith in him and his work ethic. I think he'll be fine. But yeah, he's somebody pointed out on one of the Rockets rewatch things I was listening to. He's 4 months younger than the Thompson twins. So that should put things in perspective for who Jabari is. He's just they on a functional team with real veteran structure, he shouldn't be playing as much as he's playing. He's that bad. And you could imagine if you're a player and you're that young on a real team, you're going to be sitting behind vets and learning. And a lot of the mistakes you get to make, you're going to make them in practice as you're learning. You make mistakes in practice, coach gets on you. By the time you hit the court, you've already gotten out all your mistakes. But for him and Jalen and these guys, they look so terrible their first few months because they're learning in real time. So they're making the mistakes that a regular rookie on a regular functioning team would have made in a practice setting in front of everybody on their NBA stat record. So it goes down that they're shooting this poorly. So we're just watching them pretty much grow or not grow before our eyes. The only issue is that the Rockets are doing nothing to help them out. There's no structure there. There's no support. There's no veterans. The coach is just verbalized he doesn't run plays for them. Then he's leaving them to be basically play with other guys that don't know what they're doing. So I'm hoping with this phase 2 that Stone has alluded to, that it includes actually trying to develop the assets that you were trying to accumulate through phase 1.
Yeah, but we can say all of that, but man, if the guy just makes his open shots, I mean, it's a world of difference. I mean, we can be so angry at Silas and whatever, and he didn't put him in better position. There's a lot of not ideal situations in the NBA that you walk into, and there's a lot of rookies that come in and they don't even get near as many chances to miss shots as Jabari Smith does. And it's as simple as make the shots. And he had wide open shots in the skills competition. He had wide open shots in the rookie sophomore challenge. Steven Silas wasn't even close to the arena in Salt Lake City. Just make your open shots, brother. Show me that you can shoot the basketball. Show me that you know how to shoot a jump shot. And it's not just that he misses the 3-point shots. This isn't about learning the 3, which is I thought was going to be a big deal. He's missing the 2s. He's missing the mid-range shots. He's missing pretty much everything outside of layups and 5-foot floaters and stuff like that. To me, that's the most baffling thing of all, because we just come back to that. It's like, man, just make an open jumper.
And the crazy thing is, you watch him at practice, he shoots them like he's the best shooter in the world. I've seen video of him shooting 20 shots in a row on threes, and they just all look beautiful. So obviously there's something there. Yeah, I'm not absolving anything from him as an NBA athlete is getting paid, but I think all those things I said are also there. And to me, one of the key things is that, like I said, he hasn't earned the minutes he's getting. Just because he's a number 3 pick, yes, obviously you're going to play him on this team, but there's teams that he wouldn't even not only start, but he would get very few minutes on because of what he's producing. So I think it might benefit him not to play as much. That's what I'm saying. I think he's getting to your point, yes, if he's not going to hit his shots, bench him, and not bench him out of like punitively that makes him feel bad, but he just doesn't deserve the minutes he's getting. And I don't feel like you just to make a guy feel better about his shooting, you just give him 30 minutes a night. And like Stone said, that do you try to accelerate their development by playing them? That was also baffling to hear, because just throwing people out there to get embarrassed and lose is not going to accelerate development. And sometimes you can actually reinforce bad habits and bad traits that you don't want in players. So if that was their plan for development, it's not surprising that pretty much across the board, maybe except Kevin Porter Jr., everybody's shooting worse than they were the previous season on the team. So yeah, I think it's a mixture of both Jabari and whatever he got going on, and the Rockets just really don't know what to do with these kids that they have.
All right, Frank, do we need to take a time out in the middle of this show to pray for Victor? What do you think?
Oh my God. Oh, that's your owner, man. That's your owner. That's your guy. Yeah, I just, if you guys want to go over to the Chop Shop, I have a video just talking about this, but I'm just going to echo some of the things I said. One, that has to be, I mean, for him to say that unprovoked with a hurricane in his hand, when Frank, the reporter, didn't even ask. You could even tell Frank was a little like, okay, Tilman, let's change the subject.
Well, they were. If you listen to that interview, because I listened to the interview, the reporter basically said something that indicated that they had talked beforehand not to. They
talk
weren't
business.
supposed to talk. Yeah, there was no Rockets talk that was allowed.
He tried to set him up to just say some nice, hey, it's Mardi Gras, I'm enjoying blah. No, but Tilman, maybe a little bit in the system going there. His blood is flowing a little bit. So first, the thing I did notice, the whole thank God we get 10 days off. So that's definitely a shot at the Rockets experience that we are all experiencing. And I'm sure he's impacted by what he's seeing on the court too. Then to say that unprovoked is just dumb, in my opinion. The reason I say it's dumb, and people could say it's not a big deal. I guess in a vacuum it's not, but one, you don't have the player yet. So, and two, obviously, you're not supposed to be saying that as an NBA owner. You don't have the player. There's a chance you may get the third, fourth pick. And then if I'm, one of the parents of the other team and I'm scrolling through social media and I see that the owner for the team that may draft my son is over here praying for another athlete to come there, because none of these guys think they're not the players. You just don't put that out there. Then you have the Jabaris and the Jalens of the world, regardless of how bad they're playing, they don't think they're chopped liver. And you saying pray for Victor, even though we as fans, yeah, let's pray for Victor. Yes, I want Victor. I will pray for Victor. I am going to be praying and asking God to give us Victor, but he shouldn't say that as an owner. It's just, it looks bad.
It's funny because, this is what it looks like the Rockets, their whole philosophy was this. I mean, it's not basically that any of this is a surprise to any of us. I mean, this is this has been their philosophy for the year is we're going to be as toilet trash as we can be. We're going to try to give ourselves the best odds that we can. We're not going to develop players. We don't care what the coach does, how bad he screws things up. We're going to throw out Daishen Nix and Boban and guys that have no business being on an NBA court at this point for a team that's trying to develop players. And let's pray for Victor. That's our plan for the year. That's the whole thing.
That is a perfect encapsulation of the Rockets' plan. And them saying that, oh yeah, we got this. We know what we're doing. We have a game plan. Now, I know we haven't talked about this because we missed last week with Stone's interview. I don't know. I think it was I don't know who wrote the article. I think it was Brian something that did an interview with Rafael Stone about I guess their plan, and he comes out saying that he wants to push back on the fact that they don't have a plan, that they do have a plan. And if you want to criticize the execution of said plan, but don't criticize that we don't have a plan. Like, brother, who cares? Having a plan, I could plan to be rich tomorrow, and what does that mean? That is, having a plan doesn't mean anything. You don't get a pat on the back. I could plan to burn my house down. That doesn't mean I'm doing good. Having a plan, literally the article was defending them having a plan and not actually the content of what they're trying to do. And to me, the Tilman thing just kind of, your plan is aggressively and rigidly accumulate assets. And even in doing that, you did a bad job doing that, because we are one of the most asset poor teams as far as it relates to the tanking teams in the NBA at this point. you didn't develop the actual tangible items you do have on your books as these players are, the Jalen's and the Jabaris. That's the most realist assets you have that is actually tangible. You ignore that. And now you're going to pray for a 14% chance at getting Wembayama. And Lord knows what the plan is if they don't get him. Now you're going to be scrounging around trying to run plays for Jabari so he can lend to a winning culture when you're trying to save your job and have a over 500 club next season. It to me is crazy. Yeah, they had a plan, and I'm going to say just from the outside looking in and some of the outcomes we've seen, I am going to criticize the execution. It's been terrible. Like, you don't get all these players and not try to thread the needle of trying to actually develop them in the event that you don't get a Wembayama, James Harden doesn't come home, that you have to stay with the kids you have and roll forward with them. They never even built for that alternative. So at this point, it's Wemby and Harden or bust. And to me, there's a high chance that neither of those even come true. Because as much as we know,
let's talk about Wemby for a second, because a lot of the stuff was on what Silas says this past week. A lot of the stuff was on what Tilman Fertitta said this past week. And, you noticed what Stone said, but not sure many Rockets fans noticed this. Brian Windhorst and Jonathan Givony did an extensive feature on Victor, and they were in France talking to him, and they said Wemby doesn't care what team drafts him. And that's a big deal for me because, the Rockets are the trashiest of trash teams right now, if you're looking at it from Wemby's standpoint. But under no circumstance will he refuse to play for any team. That's a huge positive for the Rockets. And he and Givony also said that his team of people in France are doing things to make sure that his feet are a healthy and long-term in good shape, because if you're a Rockets fan, that we saw this with Yao Ming. We know this with guys with his size. This kid eats organic. I mean, they do everything. They've got a team around this guy for everything. And Frank, he's so unusual. The more you hear about Wemby, the more impressive he is, especially when he just says over and over again to anybody that'll listen that he wants to be the best player ever.
Yeah, I read the article, long article. It was like 4,500 words. And yeah, impressive. I mean, the guy reads novels and listens to classical music on the bus rides to games. He eats truffles. He's an artist. They work out specifically just his big toe using bands before games. Like, who has a big toe workout? So, I mean, yeah, I'm very impressed. I like, to me, he's giving me vibes of almost Kareem Abdul, with some of that insightfulness from a big man like that. That, he's a thinker as much as he is a basketball player. And I do like that because I feel like that does translate to on the court as well. That he is somebody that has a very high IQ on and off the court. So, he's going to take care of his business.
Right there, what you just said, high IQ.
Exactly.
That is something that I worry about with a lot of the Rockets players that everybody talks about the talent of a lot of the guys on this team. And Şengün's got some IQ. Some other guys might have a little bit.
I think KJ, you can say that. Tate, he's older, so you expect that. But yeah, a lot of our young guys, it's leaves a lot to be desired in that IQ category on the court. We're not talking about their like book smarts or anything like.
Well, that's what exactly.
Yeah, just to clarify, people try to flip things, but Wemby, I'm impressed. I think that as soon as here's one thing. There are two things that I'm going to point out. The first thing is that he is somebody that when he comes to your franchise, you have to clean house. Like, you're going to have to clean your house and get your affairs in order, because the type of spotlight that kid is going to bring on whoever drafts him, hey, they're going to have BBC in your practices, CNN, ESPN. He's going to be a worldwide phenomena. So all this stuff where Rafael Stone is at Rockets practices installing defense is going to stop, because ESPN is going to be there with cameras at every single practice. So to me, that indicates whoever your coach is, they got to be a real coach. So Silas is out the door. It's because your dirty laundry is going to be out on full display. There's going to be national media folks at pretty much every Rockets game, in the press rooms, all these softball questions that the coaches are getting now because nobody cares about us, gone. So that means you're having, the wind horses. They're going to be in Houston asking why X, Y, and Z. So the whole organization is going to have to step up their game. when that kid comes in. And that, like I said, that involves Coach Silas. And Stone is going to get a shot at this. This is going to be his chance to make a mark as a GM. If he screws that up, he's going to be gone. I think Tilman doesn't care about anything but Wemby. He doesn't care about Silas. He doesn't care about Stone, because Wemby brings him money. He brings him notoriety. We know how Tilman loves to show off and flex things that when they're going well, and not so much when they're bad as they are right now. The second thing is from that article that I saw, and this is a red flag for me though. The previous league he was in, I think it's called Asvel. Before, or the team he was on, Tony Parker's team, I think it's Asvel or something like that. When he played there, he got injured a couple of times, and they said it was due to the frequency of the games and the fact that they didn't really have a lot of time. And also for his game, he didn't have time to develop because it was a more veteran roster. They didn't really slow down for him. These are guys that are trying to get paid, possibly play in the NBA and things like that. So these are a lot of vets, and they're trying to win games. I looked at the stat. He didn't really do that good under those circumstances, given he was younger. This new team he's on, the Metropolitan, the Mets that he's on, they actually cater everything to him. I mean, their practice schedule. I mean, they barely play games because they practice so much. They had Tremont Waters, one of the point guards on the team, basically saying that my job is to set up Wemby. So that's unrealistic for the NBA. As we know, the NBA is a grueling schedule. One of the reasons Jabari and all these young guys struggle is because you're playing back-to-backs, 4 games in 5 nights. You're traveling from Toronto to
hold on.
LA,
You're looking
all these things.
Hold on with that. You're looking at this as a bad thing. I'm going to stop you for a second because
yeah,
I'm hearing you say all that. You're looking at this as a bad thing.
That's a red flag for me. That's all I'm saying. It's a red flag for me.
I'm going to say the opposite, because the fact that he is not playing, I think it's good that he is. Now the injury thing, that's a concern no matter what. There's nothing you could tell me about him that would make me not concerned about his injury issues because of his size. That's something that is going to be a concern no matter what. I mean, that's something that you just have to take a chance on because the guy is a freak and you got to take a chance on. I mean, you have to. I mean, he's somebody, right. His ceiling is just so big. But the fact that they're practicing a lot, that they're working on stuff, that they're not just playing. Because one thing I hate about the guys that we got today, Frank, with this AAU stuff, and they play a lot of games, but there's nothing to it. It's just getting out there and playing. They're not learning anything. They're not in the lab working on stuff. To me, I look at that, what he's doing and what they're doing with him, is the opposite. And the problem, everything that you just said, that is the problem.
No.
Kids.
You're misunderstanding me. That's not what I meant. What you're saying, yes. What I'm saying is literally the frequency of his body getting to play games. I'm not talking about the developmental side. I'm talking about the workload. He is in an environment right now where the workload is like he plays like once or twice a week. And to me, once again, I'm not talking about the development. I'm talking about when he gets to be an NBA player, we are not stopping the games because of Wemby. He's going to have to play. And I just don't know what his body is going to hold up like on that frequency of games and demand.
Well, I think I'm saying the reason they're probably doing that is they're trying to be real careful, because this is a guy that's weird body. It's developing. He's still young. Let's not put too much pressure on it too quickly. Let's let him grow into man size and whatever. I think
that's the risk, though. It's still a risk. You can't lie. It's an unknown. You're preparing for something because it might happen. And I think they're smart, but to me, that's still a risk. And I would take the risk 100 out of 100, but that's the risk a team has to take.
And we're going to talk a little bit about Scoot in a second, but just on that compared to Scoot, who's played, I don't know, like 14 games this year. He's injured all the time. Nobody's talking about that with Scoot Henderson, but that is absolutely an issue. This guy's been injured a lot. He's barely played any games the last 2 years. The last 2 years in the G League, if you look at the stats, I mean, this is, to me, it's just as much a concern with him. I don't know how much real, I mean, we call them games, this G League at Ignite stuff with the Thompson twins and all that stuff. I mean, is that I mean, when you're playing a real college schedule and you're doing what these college kids are doing, it's a total huge difference between the G League Ignite. You know, you can talk about what he's doing, but at least he's playing against some big body regular guys. These guys, you know, the G League Ignite, all that sort of stuff. I mean, they're playing so few games, and I worry about all of these guys, the Thompson twins, Scoot, all of them.
Yeah, I think Will Wemby, obviously, the frame is the reason he's working on his big toe, and he has all these specialists, nutritionists, and even in the article, they said they don't want him to get big or put on any weight. They just want him to get functionally stronger because of they're trying to prevent. I mean, no other prospect in the draft is going to be going through those lengths not to get hurt because history tells us what's going to come with his size. So, yes, with Scoot, I'm not really worried about injury. If he is injured, but I'm worried about other things with other athletes. Once again, for Wemby, I pray for Wemby. Tillman's buzz, drunk, whatever he was, aside. Yes, please pray for Wemby because we need Wemby. If you get Wemby in the building, Stone could get fired. Tillman could sell the team. You're still going to have Wemby on your team. That's a guy, to me, is a pillar for a dynasty. If you get the right coach and front office in place, you can really build a real sustaining dynasty around a talent like that. And the game is real. The fluidity in which he plays. He's just like a creative player. So just something that we've never seen. So, but once again, the risk is there, and everybody's going to take the risk on that. But that is a red flag to me that right now the world he lives in is a bubble world that is created solely to make him look good and develop him, which the NBA is not like that. And he might luck out and get to a Coach Silas as his coach and and get to just be the role man for some bad guard that's still learning how to do a pick and roll. Now we hope. I mean, there are other teams. I'm interested in seeing what team does get him. If we don't get him, I'd like to see Wemby with a Coach Popovich because I feel like he's that level of talent that you kind of want him to go to a historic team. So if I was let me step out. I'm going to make Rockets fans mad real quick. As a basketball fan, honestly, I don't think we deserve him. But as a fan of the Houston Rockets, we need him. But if it was me, I need the talent that he is. I want Wemby with Popovich. I want him with somebody that I know they're not going to squander him and put him, and he's going to be winning 5 titles and things like that. I don't want him to be like AD in New Orleans where you get a talent and they lose so much that they end up leaving, or any of these, or LeBron. And Wemby wasn't born in Houston, Texas, so if he leaves like LeBron, he's not coming back because his mama lives in Houston. So yeah, I want him, but yeah, I do. That is a bit of a red flag to me, the injury thing.
Yeah, I mentioned Scoot, and I want to ask you something about Scoot because everybody agrees there's no franchise who's trading out of Wemby in the top spot. But what about Scoot? And I'm just going to throw this out there. The Pistons, they've got Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey in their backcourt. The Pacers have Halliburton and Mathurin in their backcourt. The Hornets have LaMelo. These are all young point guards. The Blazers have Dame Lillard, veteran point guard, but they also, remember, they've got Shaedon Sharpe and Anthony Simons. If any of these teams land in the 2 spot, and there's a lot of them that are up there high in the draft, except for Portland, the Rockets, they would likely be 3, 4, 5. We're going to throw out the whole idea of them having Wemby and say they're in the 3, 4, or 5. Could you convince them, Frank, to swap picks for, either the Nets pick package, maybe partial of the Nets pick package, a combination of some of your assets like Tari and KJ, et cetera? Is there a way that you could convince them out of Scoot? Because some of these guys, I don't know how well they would work in combination with Scoot if you do that, right?
Well, I think some of those teams you named would take him, like LaMelo, the Hornets. I think they would take him because they don't have anything else aside from LaMelo. Pacers, maybe because Halliburton is nice, but even them, I think a lot of teams, regardless of what their guard situation, I can't think of anybody that have 2 just that high level guards. Even Cade is injured, and Ivy is still, to me, Scoot is a way better prospect than Jaden Ivey is. But if you were to find a team that is willing to move, I think, yeah, it would probably cost you the whole shebang. Like they would want, not only because obviously if Wemby wasn't in this draft, he'd be number 1. So some people call him generational. I don't, because I've seen Scoot before in different players, and maybe people may not see it, but I've seen the Stephon Marbury types. Maybe they're not as big. To me, Scoot is just a throwback, just a power guard. That's he has high IQ. I think that's really what separates him from a lot of the other guys that you will see with his build and athleticism, is that he actually plays the game at a certain level. So I think that's what separates him from a lot of these guys that are uber athletes, is that he could read the game. He's actually a savant in a kind of a way. Yeah, for the Rockets to make that move, would I do it? No, I would trade out to try to get a known asset like a player. But if I did want to move up, I think the market to move up from like 4, for example, to 2 would not only be that 4th pick to swap it out with that team, it would cost you probably both of your future Brooklyn picks and possibly some of those swaps. Is that worth it?
Yes.
I don't know, man. I don't know. It just depends. Who's at? Are you at 3 or 4?
Let me ask you this then, okay? And maybe you're not as sold as I am on Scoop, but I'm going to remind people. Would you, if you were in the draft that the Knicks were in, and you've got Zion and Ja, and then the drop off is RJ Barrett, would you give up? Because look, man, everybody thinks every pick that they're giving up is going to be a 1, 2, or 3 pick that no. It's not happening. It's very rare that you trade for a pick and that pick's going to end up in the top 3. This is a guy that everybody said he would be a number 1 pick, like you said, if this was another draft. This is basically like saying, would I give up all these assets, and who knows what any of them are going to be, for a guy that everybody seems to believe could be a 1 on a championship team, a 1 on a championship team.
Well, that's if you're framing it, and not, to me, it's more expansive than that. It's not just draft picks. Remember, what I said earlier, the Rockets are one of the most asset poor organizations. So this is we have one bullet in the chamber. And if you're going to go for Scoot, you're going all in. And once you do that, you're kind of stuck for a couple of years as it relates to assets, without breaking up a bunch of stuff you already have, and you're never going to get the return back. I don't ever foresee us drafting those Brooklyn picks. Honestly, if it was my world, those picks would be gone as soon as this summer. It's going to be Scoot versus the field, and the field includes trades and possible players that are out there currently in the NBA. And I think that's where you start wondering, like, maybe you're taking yourself out of being in position to land. Who knows who shakes free in the next couple of months. The NBA, if I told you what the league looks like in December right now, and I went back in time and told you, hey, yeah, Kyrie's on Dallas and Russell Westbrook's on the Clippers, you would think I was drunk. So once again, it's not just that. It's also the flexibility of trying to acquire players via trade. I don't think Scoot is like, I don't know. I don't put him as a top 15 player right now. I think he's going to develop into that at some point in his career. But just like all the other young players, there's going to be a lot of factors that impact his development. Also, the injuries, is he goes to the right team, right system, all that. If I can get like a Jaylen Brown, that's something I have to think about. If somebody like a Jaylen Brown is available for me via trade, to say that I want to trade on my picks, and am I doing that for Scoot or Jaylen? I don't know. I'm just saying. So it's not to me that clear cut. As much as I love Scoot Henderson.
Yeah, I just say, like, if you got a chance to go for one of those guys that we think could be one of those, yeah, nobody's coming in and being a top 15 player. Yeah, it's going to take time, no matter who it is, no matter what. We never see guys that just come in and enter that at the beginning. It's going to take a few years always. But let me just point out that, look, Damon Stoudemire don't want to go anywhere with the Blazers. So they've got Shaedon Sharpe that's taken a while to develop. Damon Stoudemire might not want to wait around that long.
Lillard.
I mean, I'm sorry. Dame
Lillard.
Dame Lillard. Yeah, they got Dame Lillard that doesn't want to wait around a while. And, they have Shaedon Sharpe. If you're Portland, maybe Shaedon Sharpe shakes free. But I want to throw out the fact that, with Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey, what about this? What would you be willing to give up if they get Scoot for Jaden Ivey? Because I just don't see those 3 guys working together. You can't put all 3 of those guys on the court. I don't think necessarily that's the best plan. And for them, they're really shallow in the forward position. So is there something that you would be willing to give up? Because at that point, you're giving up stuff for Jaden Ivey. And since you're not swapping out to get Scoot, basically you're getting also the pick that you're going to get in the 3, 4, or 5 spot as well. So what would you?
Would the
what
Rockets
would you,
be? Will we be the people with Scoot, or you're looking at Detroit's from Detroit's point of view?
No, I'm saying if they land at 2 with Scoot on the board, what would you be willing to give? What do you think of Jaden Ivey? Do you think
Okay, we'll be willing to take him and some other assets. I love Ivy. I think he's going to be good. I think in a couple of years, like he's going to be a player. Oh man, that's tough.
I mean, they need some. They've got centers with Wiseman, and they've got Jalen Duren.
Yeah, he's real good.
Duren's the bigger deal, but they've got they've got centers. They have guards. They don't have forwards. If you could give them, a couple of those New Jersey picks somehow, and let's say it's Tari Eason and KJ Martin, like how much do you like Jaden Ivey?
I think that oh man, that would be interesting. That would be interesting to get Jaden back. But honestly, we've done such a poor job with the guys we have now that Jaden would just be like having another Jalen. And for me,
if you don't think they're going to hire another coach and they're going to change this around, then it's not even a point of talking about it. It's like,
listen, I see my honest view is that next year is going to be year 1 of the rebuild as it relates to development. That's how I view it. I know they've made some natural.
But Silas isn't. Let's pretend Silas isn't going to be here because he's not.
Whoever's replacing Silas, they're going to have to start from scratch. They have a lot of work to do with these guys. Like we still were struggling to break the zone, man. Like it's so much that our guys are behind on that I'm at the point that right now they have to start importing IQ. Unless we want this rebuild to extend on for another 2 or 3 years, which if that's the plan and they're going to do it completely, I'm okay with that. But this whole phase 2 talk and all this stuff they're talking about, those type of moves, like getting Jaden Ivey, that doesn't move the needle for that. Like you're going to need players that can make an impact right now because the guys we have right now, they're just not ready. So I think
okay, then if you're saying we're going to need players and you got to trade those Brooklyn picks. Let's get back to that. I mean, that's the big question to me, Frank, is, Rockets fans have convinced themselves that they can take these draft picks and these draft assets and go out and get somebody. Specifically, we're talking, of course, about the Nets picks to trade for that star that becomes available. So I just flat out, I'm going to ask you, what star are we talking about? Who's ready to pop loose? Because I've gone up and down rosters and I find it hard to come up with a name or two.
It's the NBA, brother. It could be anybody in any night. We could be talking right now. Wills could drop a bomb about the randomest player saying that they want out. But, I mean, obviously some targets. Mikal Bridges is one that Stone has already said they, quote-unquote, kick the tires on.
But he's not a star.
Yeah, well, if you're talking about like star, how many stars are there in the NBA? And those guys rarely move. So I don't think we're going to get a star. In fact, we don't have the ammunition to get a star.
Oh, sure we do, because last year we just saw Donovan Mitchell go to Cleveland for their first round picks. That
how many picks did Cleveland? Wasn't like four?
It was not. Look, it was not that much.
Do you know how many picks we have? We have
but the picks that we have are more valuable. When you're a team that's on the precipice of being really great, and you give somebody your picks that likely aren't going to be good for 3 or 4 years because you're good and you're making that team good, as opposed to we're still in one of the better positions because we have the Brooklyn picks that at least have a chance this is a team that has a chance to go down into the toilet.
I'm going to disagree with there because I feel like
hold on before you disagree with me. So you're telling me that you think that the Brooklyn picks are worse than the Cleveland picks that they just get for Donovan Mitchell?
No, that's not that specific case. I'm not talking about that. That's a specific. I'm talking about in general. The NBA is so in flux that a trade like AD to the Lakers, Paul George to the Clippers, while it may look, or even the Suns trade for Kevin Durant, while it may look in short time, these teams blow up so fast, like we saw with Brooklyn. They blow up so fast because these stars are so temperamental and the expectations to win are so high that you could have a dynasty one year that's tanking the next year. So that's why I just don't. And it could be the other way around, where a team like Brooklyn looks like they're dead to rights, and next you know they flip those 8 first-round picks they have and the 30 wings they have on their roster for who knows, Bradley Beal or somebody that shakes free and joins them up with Mikal Bridges. So the NBA is such in flux. Yes, you're what you said is true and probably like more probable, but it can go either way, man. That's how I see it. And for us, like when I say we don't have the ammunition, it's not that we don't have picks. We're competing with Oklahoma City. We're competing with, Orlando. We're competing with Brooklyn now. These teams are loaded. Utah. These teams are loaded with picks. New Orleans. I can keep going. Indiana, Sacramento. They have more picks than us. They have more picks than us. Variety of players, young assets that they can give to other teams to get said stars. And that's one of the biggest issues I've had with the development, is because when you're developing these guys, not only for them to play good for you, so in the trade market, if you wanted to break up a Jabari and Jalen, that at least Jabari doesn't look like the worst player in the NBA, that Jalen doesn't look like a cone on defense, and he's just a microwave scorer. That's why it's important to make your guys look good, because even if you love them and you want to move away from them because something better comes up, they're worth something. Every team, Orlando, every young team I know has better assets in this, in their picks and in their players. And to me, when it comes to these stars that are going to shake loose, the reason I'm a bit skeptical about us getting a real star is because teams could outbid us. Memphis could put together a package to get somebody better than we can. So that's just, it's a bit depressing, but the Rockets are behind the 8 ball. So I'm really curious to see what Stone is going to do to turn this ship around this coming summer.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you to a point about, we don't have the quantity of assets, but I think our quality is going to be a lot better just because the picks that we've got are Brooklyn picks. So when the team trades to us, they're not getting stuff from a team that's going to be good. They'll still have Brooklyn's picks that we don't know, that's still in way more flux than if you give a great player to us and make us better. I mean, I know New Orleans has got the Lakers picks, and that kind of matters a lot. So I agree with you about New Orleans. And there's a couple of those teams that I agree with you about, but there's also a couple teams that I'm just like, I don't know, what those first round picks are, but a lot of times they got first round picks from teams that are good, like Milwaukee's first round picks. As long as Giannis is breathing and has got a pulse, the Milwaukee picks to me are meaningless. They're going to be one of the best teams in the NBA. I think where the real concern is for Rockets fans, and I think this is where you don't think it out a lot, is it's twofold, actually. Number one, the real concern for Rockets fans is who wants to come to Houston, because agents now make the decision of like, if my guy wants out, where does he want to go? Well, unless Wemby lands here, and this Harden thing comes through and all of these things sort of combine to make you a go-to place, then who wants to come to Houston, the worst team in the NBA for 3 years? You don't have players that are like, I want to get to Houston. The second problem that the Rockets are going to have is, you can trade all of your assets, and then what are you going to have left to deal if you're just talking about getting that first superstar? You're depending on all of these young guys sort of coming together and coalescing really quickly. Or can you combine all of your assets into 2 trades and get 2 guys, and maybe if 2 guys shake loose? The third thing, if you're the Rockets, if you're trying to get some of the guys that you have, these young players, to develop and do something quickly, you just made it so much harder because you haven't been developing them for a year, and you put yourself a year behind the 8 ball, as we've talked about in the past. It's like, if these guys were ready to blossom and other teams looked like, man, that Jabari showed me something, and man, that Jalen, and he's starting to do something and whatever, and that player decides to come over here, all of a sudden they go, well, this team looks like they're ready to go in a year or 2.
Exactly.
But you're working now on, nobody wants to wait that. There is no patience for stars out there. And I guess my final thing is, it was my whole argument with Donovan Mitchell. When guys are griping about changing teams and one out, when the Woj bomb, as you said, comes along, the thing that you have to remember is those guys are usually 30, 31, 32. They're later in their career. And if they're younger in their career and they're doing stuff like that, like a Kyrie Irving or whatever, it's probably a guy you don't want to bank your future on anyway. So like that's the concern with this whole thing is you have to look at what kind of star is going to be that guy that's like, get me out of here. Like, yeah, if it's Luka, but I think that's not going to happen in the next 6 months. Jaylen Brown's the guy that you mentioned. Why does Jaylen Brown? I mean, what is going to happen where Jaylen Brown's going to go, you know what? I want to leave a perennial MVP candidate and a team that knows how to build things and knows how to structure a team and is there all the time every single year. And I want to come to the Houston Rockets. That's why I asked you, like, who is this miraculous guy out there? I'm going through roster by roster, and I'm like, no, Rockets fans would be mad if we tried to trade for that guy, and that guy doesn't fit the timeline, and that guy is a guy there's no way in the world.
There's no timeline right now. Beggars can be choosers. I think with the Jaylen thing, they did try to trade him a couple of times. I think that may be still be in his mind. But it's really hard to find a real star player right now. But I think the NBA changes so much. Like you said, the dream scenario for Rockets would be obviously to land a Wemby or even a Scoot, and maybe Harden comes back. And then you have something that may attract people to want to come down. And to me, it starts with attracting a good coach, because that's also a key part of this. To get a player to come down, they have to believe in what's going on down there. I don't think there's a lot of confidence in Stephen Silas if he's your coach. Hell, I don't think there's a lot of confidence in Rafael Stone as a GM, because all the losses Silas has compiled are still under Stone's record as well. So, the organization needs a total facelift. Honestly, if I had to put money on it, or what I think is going to end up happening is we're going to be somewhere in the middle of what everybody's dreaming of and total catastrophe, where they may be able to swing for a guy that's not a star, but is a player that, okay, he's a good player. Maybe Jaylen takes a little jump over the summer. Maybe Jabari isn't the worst player on earth. And then you can get some vets in the room that just want to play for a chance to get another chance in the NBA, some guys that just, you might have to overpay, and you put together a team that wins 35 games. To me, that'd be a big step up, because at least the way I view it, for our young guys, they can learn how to be NBA players in that time frame. Then maybe if we get lucky enough, by the time Jalen Green is talking about his extension and Jabari is in his third year and all these guys that we've drafted are coming to their fourth and fifth year, they can start being good on their own. And then you'll have a natural team of players that you don't have to go outside for a star. You have a star in Jalen Green. Jabari Smith is a all defensive type of guy. But the Rockets need to start right now, man. They're so behind, and it's their fault. Their fault. I don't think they knew what they were doing. It seems like, just like Tilman, pray for Wemby. That was their motto, and it showed in what they done. And now they really have to get their homework done, and they haven't studied. So yeah, it's gonna be a fun summer. I'm really excited to see. Starts with draft night, where we land. That is going to trigger a whole series of things that I'm just ready to see. It's going to be a movie this summer.
And you and I talked a little bit before the show, because we saw this kind of breaking later in the day. But I mean, going back to Rafael Stone, man, Quinn Snyder, they're not talking. He could end up with the Atlanta Hawks because they fired Nate McMillan. And this is back to Rafael Stone taking his sweet time with stuff. If he did not fire Silas in time and missed out on maybe the opportunity to get a Quinn Snyder, and you don't know who else you're going to miss an opportunity on, because you're waiting and waiting and waiting, because let's get back to where we started. Pray for Wemby. Pray for Wemby. Pray for Wemby. That's all this is. That's a whole season. We're throwing everything else to the side. And if that doesn't happen, if that 14% chance does not happen, it appears to me that there is no quote unquote plan. The backup plan. There's one plan, and it's a bad plan, and it's a plan that, if it falls through, the 14% chance is all you got. If it falls through, where are you? Not far.
Yeah, that's going to be a sad situation. The Silas thing, obviously, I think there's some politics going on there with him. But yes, I agree. Quinn Snyder may be off the board. Maybe Ime is going to be off the board fairly soon. A lot of these coaches and the teams that are going to start firing and hiring are going to do so, especially the ones that aren't in Wemby land. So once again, just like players, what coach wants to come to Houston? I think Wemby is a draw. So maybe you wait till after the draft. So to see who you can get. that's available that maybe is not working at the time. But I think a lot of the elite coaches, I just don't see them saying, I want to go coach Jabari Smith and Jalen Green down in Houston. Because once again, it's so important. And me and Mike on Spaces talked about this the whole time through this rebuild. The reason that you want to develop your guys and make them play good, despite trying to tank, because you attract people to say, that's where I want to be. I want to be with those guys. I want to go coach those kids. I want to play with that young star. We failed at that. And now the fan base is going to learn the repercussions of just being lazy and just throwing, everything into just praying for Paulo. And it seems like they didn't know what to do with Jabari Smith when we didn't get Paulo Banchero. Now it's pray for Wemby, and Lord knows what their reactions are going to be from there. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'm really excited to see. I think Silas does make it through the season. I'm sure he's going to be gone as soon as the season's over. I do hope they get a coach right after that and then start planning for what type of team they want to build.
It's amazing a team that was kind of built on analytics just a few years ago doesn't get what 14% means. But what's going on with Rockets Chop Shop before we wrap things up?
Yeah, more of the same, man. We're just doing the post-game lives. Like I said, I just did a video looking at the article by Gavoni and Windhorse, kind of going through what I think about Wemby. Like you, I was very impressed with just, I really do put a lot of stock into the insight that players give and how, some of the stuff they say and how they maneuver. And I think Wemby is the real deal as far as a culture setter. This guy, I mean, there was a thing that they quoted him saying that his idea of a rebuild is what the Warriors did in the 2010s, which Rockets fans may not like that, but yeah, that's a good answer. That's a good answer. That's a good answer, man. Good. He's a good kid.
Subscribe on YouTube. It's the Rockets Chop Shop. Thanks a lot, man.
Yes, sir.
You're listening to Houston Sports Talk.
Hey, don't forget to support us by subscribing and commenting on YouTube. You can always listen to us on Spotify, Apple, or your favorite podcast app. Tell your friends about us and share our show links on social media. Spread the word, everybody. Thanks for listening.